Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to do something really cool. We're going on an epic journey that spans centuries and continents, and it's all hidden inside a single family name. We're going to follow a bloodline from medieval Italy all the way to the Greek islands, and then to the shores of South Africa, and see how massive world events shaped the story of just one family. So, it makes you wonder, right? How much history can one name really hold? Well, we're about to find out by digging into how one family's identity was forged, changed, and eventually rediscovered across generations and continents. And really, the entire journey is kind of summed up right here. It started as Fattore in Italy, then it was Hellenized, made Greek to Fatouros, and then it was anglicized to Fatouros in South Africa. This isn't just about spelling, it's a living map of migration and history. Okay, so to really get this, we have to go back, way back, to the Middle Ages, a time when knights and crusaders were literally redrawing the map of the Mediterranean. This era was known as the Franco-Crocea, and it was a time of massive upheaval. You had these French and Italian crusader states taking over former Byzantine lands, and they brought a lot of settlers with them. It was during this time of conquest and, opportunity that tons of Italian families put down new roots on the Greek islands, including the ancestors of the Fatouros family. And this timeline just perfectly shows how centuries of change happened step by step. The family arrives from Italy as Catholic farmers. The name Fattore literally means farm manager. Over the next few hundred years, they completely integrate. They found villages, they convert to the Greek Orthodox faith, and they adapt their name. By the 1800s, their Italian origins are a super distant memory. They are, for all intents and purposes, Greek. And check this out. This hand-drawn map pinpoints their new home base, the village of Evgiros, on the island of Lefkada. This tiny village became the heart of the Fatouros clan. The name actually became so common there that different branches of the family had to use secondary nicknames just to tell each other apart. And trust me, that little detail becomes super important later on. Alright, so let's fast forward to the late 19th century. Life in Evgiros was tough. For the sons of Evgiros and Anastasia Fatouros, the lack of opportunity on a small Greek island would push them down dramatically different roads, splitting the family tree right down the middle. And this is basically the key that unlocked the entire modern story. It's an incredible artifact, a family tree meticulously hand-drawn by a cousin in Greece named Theodoros. For decades, this single piece of paper was the only real physical link connecting family branches separated by an entire ocean. And the fates of these four brothers show you just how stark that division was. You have Efstathios, who everyone called Stathis, sailing for a whole new continent. But his brothers who stayed behind, their lives were shaped by the absolute turmoil of 20th century Europe. Angelus's family faced the unimaginable tragedy of losing two sons during World War II. Dionysios actually managed to visit his relatives in South Africa once, just a brief, powerful connection between two worlds, before he passed away. The family was now on two completely different paths.
A story that stretches across continents and battle lines. We're talking about resistance, duty, and sacrifice, all played out by relatives who were oceans apart, but found themselves fighting in the exact same war, just in completely different ways.
So that brings us to the central question, right? It sounds like a total paradox. How can one family be fighting as partisans against occupiers in the mountains of Greece and, at the same time, serving in the Allied civil defense in South Africa? Well, that's the incredible story we're going to unpack today. It's a story that really proves that loyalty and courage, they aren't defined by where you are on a map.
And this is the moment that changes everything. In the late 1800s, one son, Efstathios, makes the huge decision to leave for South Africa. His brothers, Angelos and Dionysios, they stay behind. And with that one choice, the family tree splits right in two, setting the stage for two completely different destinies.
So let's fast forward to the 1930s. The world is stumbling towards its second massive war, and this family, now separated by thousands of miles, is about to get pulled into the exact same conflict from totally opposite ends. And this really shows you the stark reality of their situations. For the Fatouros family back in Greece, the war meant invasion. It meant occupation, a brutal daily fight for survival on their own land. But for their relatives in South Africa, which was part of the British Commonwealth, it meant defending the home front and supporting the Allied war effort from this really vital port.
Let's start with the Greek branch, because their story is just one of incredible guts against impossible odds. In their home village of Evgiros, defiance became a way of life. but man, it came with a terrible, terrible price. This is a part of their history that should never be forgotten.
See, their village wasn't just some passive victim of the war. No way. As this historian points out, Evgiros was an active hub for the leftist EAM resistance. It became this beacon of defiance, a real thorn in the side of the occupiers and anyone who collaborated with them.
And the family was right at the heart of it all. A relative, Spiros G. Fatouros, was actually the local guerrilla commander. The whole village was basically involved, which of course made them a massive target.
So that's the big picture. But if we really want to get the whole story, we've got to zoom in, way in. We're going to funnel down from that epic timeline to the 20th century, to the brutal Axis occupation of World War II, and we're going to focus on one small village, Evgiros, and the story of one powerful family clan. Now, the family was so big, so dominant in this one village, that they had to come up with an elaborate system of nicknames just to tell each other apart. It was like a mini society right there in the village. You had the Rizos branch, which means the roots, and the Tsotsos, who are famous fishermen. And this is where our main character enters the stage, a reserve officer named Spiros G. Fatouros, from the branch everyone called Patrikios.
So, as the Greek resistance against the Axis powers grew stronger, this tight-knit family clan basically transformed itself into a disciplined guerrilla unit. And in the summer of 1944, out in the rugged hills of southern Lefkada, they faced their defining moment. Let's take a look at the war report.
The main resistance army, known as Hellas, was planning a huge operation. But this wasn't just a simple fight against the occupiers. Oh no, it was way more complicated. It was also a battle to clear out rival Greek factions who were already jockeying for control after the war. And our guy, Commander Patrikios, and his 4th Company, which was literally a people's army of his own relatives, farmers and fishermen from his village, they were given a crucial job: to swing south and complete a pincer movement to trap the enemy. At first, the battle was a huge success. Patrikios and his men fought like lions for days, taking one key position after another. But then everything changed. Some critical intelligence arrived, and it didn't come from military command. It came from local women from a nearby village who risked their lives to cross the lines. Their message was terrifying. The Germans were coming.
Suddenly, Patrikios was faced with an absolutely impossible choice. He knew his small company of volunteers stood zero chance against a motorized German force. I mean, they'd be wiped out, for sure. But worse, their destruction would leave his home village, the heart of his clan, completely defenseless, totally open to annihilation. His choice was brutal, but it was clear. He had to sacrifice the battle to save his people.
You'd think that would be the end of his trials, right? A hero's story. Well, you'd be wrong. The end of the war didn't bring any peace for Commander Patrikios. In the bitter Greek civil war that exploded right after, his heroism in the resistance actually made him a target. He was branded an enemy of the very state he had just fought to liberate. So he was arrested, and what followed was more than a decade of brutal persecution, a period that's known in Greece as the Stone Years. Look at this. He was moved between Greece's most notorious political detention camps, from the harsh island of Ikaria to the infamous torture island of Mekronossos. It was just one awful place after another, for years. But this is what is so incredible about him, what really shows his resilience. After more than a decade of that hell, he returned. And he wasn't a broken man, not at all. He reinvented himself as a master merchant. He got a traditional wooden boat, a kaiki, and it became his floating shop. He'd sail from Corfu with fine pottery and trade it for tomatoes and oil from those same southern villages, becoming a lifeline and a legend in the very region he had once fought to protect.
So you see, the story doesn't end with Commander Patrikios. Because his legacy, and the legacy of the whole Fatouros clan, it's not just some dusty old history. It is a living, breathing presence on the island right now, today. His descendants are carrying that torch, each in their own way. You've got Spiros Fatouros, the son of that legendary fisherman, Tatsos. He's still out of the water, pulling in these incredible catches, carrying on the family's mastery of the sea. If you go to the village of Evgiros, Spiros Pouliozos runs the local cafe, and he's basically the living keeper of the clan's stories. And others in the family have become writers, putting it all down on paper.
Which brings us right back to the heart of it all. When we go looking for the whole story of a place like Lefkada, yeah, we can study the empires and we can read about the battles. But maybe, just maybe, the most detailed history, the most complete story, isn't found in books or carved into stone castles. Maybe it's found in the living, breathing legacy of a family like the Fatouros clan, a story of resilience that's literally written into their blood.
And the cost became even more personal, even more tragic. Dionysius, one of the original brothers who stayed in Greece, was arrested for his resistance work. He ended up dying in an Italian military prison in 1943. And here's the absolute heartbreak of it. His death came just days before Italy surrendered. He was so close to seeing liberation. His is a sacrifice that absolutely deserves to be remembered.
Okay, now let's shift our focus thousands of miles away to South Africa. While his cousins were fighting a guerrilla war in the mountains, Efstathios' son, Spiro Fatouros, was answering a very different kind of call to duty in the port city of Durban.
To really get Spiro's role, you have to understand how important Durban was. This wasn't just any port. It was one of the most critical logistical hubs for the entire Allied war effort. A constant stream of troop ships and supply convoys came through there. Protecting it was absolutely essential.
So Spiro's war wasn't one of ambushes and firefights. It was a war of quiet, steady, but vital service. As a civil defense volunteer, he was the guy patrolling the darkened streets, standing watch for enemy planes, and helping keep the city safe. It's a different kind of bravery, you know? It's that reliable, everyday duty that keeps the whole war machine running.
And when you zoom out, you see the family's commitment was truly global. It wasn't just the resistance in Greece and the civil defense in South Africa. There was another relative, Anthony A. Fatouros, who was serving with the Australian Army. He actually died in the pivotal Battle of El Alamein. So you've got 3 continents, 3 totally different forms of service, all under one family name. It's incredible.
So what happened after the guns finally went silent? Well, the end of the war was definitely not the end of the story. For both branches of the Fatouros family, this conflict left a deep, lasting legacy that would shape their families for generations.
And their post-war paths could not have been more different. The Greece branch came out of World War II only to be thrown straight into a brutal civil war, where they were actually persecuted for their leftist resistance work. Meanwhile, the South African branch, having survived the war physically intact, got to experience post-war prosperity and even became leaders in their community.
But that tradition of service, that didn't just go away. A generation later, you have descendants in South Africa, like Quentin Fatouros, serving in their country's military during the Cold War era. A totally different conflict, a different time, but that same sense of duty was clearly passed down.
So when you boil it all down, the Fatouros family story is just this powerful example of resilience. It shows us that service can take so many different forms, from the front lines to the home front, and it really highlights this powerful bond of a diaspora. You had support flowing from South Africa to help rebuild a burned village in Greece, and at the same time you had these stories of sacrifice flowing back, making sure that what happened in Evgiros would never ever be forgotten.
So let's follow that path. Let's follow the journey of Stathis, the one brother who gambled everything on a new life thousands and thousands of miles from home. So in the late 1890s, Efstathios Fatouros left the quiet hills of Lefkada and headed for the bustling, busy port city of Durban, South Africa. He was part of a huge wave of Greek immigrants at the time, all looking for a better opportunity. And this was a huge moment of assimilation. To navigate the British colonial bureaucracy back then, Stathis used a legal process called a deed poll. Remember those secondary nicknames from the village? He dropped his Livanos and simplified the Greek spelling for English speakers. And with that official act, the South African branch of the family was born, with the new name Fatouros.
They didn't just cross seas to reach South Africa. They crossed generations. The journey was the inheritance.
And this right here, this was the foundation of his new life. Stathis became an entrepreneur, setting up this fish and chips shop near the Durban waterfront. It's the classic immigrant success story, right? This little business was way more than just a job. It was the cornerstone on which generations of the Fatouros family in South Africa would build their entire future. So from that one fish and chip shop, Stathis and his wife Elise started a whole new bloodline that would grow to become proudly South African while always holding on to the memory of its Greek heritage. And you can just trace this direct line, 5 generations on a brand new continent. It all starts with Stathis, the immigrant patriarch. Then comes his son Spiro, who served his new country in World War II. The line continues to Brad, who became the dedicated keeper of the family's history, and then on to his son Tyron and grandson Vincent, the newest link in this incredible chain. And you know, that entrepreneurial spirit that Stathis brought with him all the way from Greece, it definitely didn't end with him. The original fish and chip saloon ran until 1945. After that, his son Johnny carried on the family trade, running his own fish shop well into the 1980s. For decades, the Fatouros name, through hard work and probably some really good food, was just woven into the fabric of the Durban community. Now, for almost a century, the two branches of the family lived worlds apart. Their connection just faded into memory. But then, in the late 1980s, a single letter crossed the ocean and reignited a link that everyone thought was lost forever. A really remarkable correspondence started between two second cousins who had never even met, Donald Fatouros in South Africa and Theodoros Patrikios in Greece. For the next 23 years, they exchanged letters, old photographs and documents, like the ones you see here, meticulously piecing together the two halves of their family's long-lost history. And this one line from one of Theodoros's very first letters, it just captures the emotion of that moment perfectly. It speaks to that deep, universal need to understand where we come from and the incredible joy of reconnecting family ties that had been stretched thin but never fully broken by time and distance. And through this correspondence, this South African family finally saw pictures of the home their patriarch had left a century before. They got photos of the old stone cottage in Evgiros, now just a shell. And with the photos came these amazing details, like the discovery of a handmade wooden spoon, over 130 years old, found among the ruins of the family home. Just amazing. And with that, the whole journey comes full circle. For the descendants now living in South Africa and even Northern Ireland, their story is reconnected to this timeless Greek landscape. It's the same view their ancestors saw centuries ago. The name Fatouros is no longer just a word, it's a bridge that connects generations, spans continents, and leads right back to these hills. This family's Odyssey is such a powerful reminder that every family name holds its own story of migration, survival, and connection. It just shows that no matter how far we travel or how much time passes, pieces of our history are always out there just waiting for us to rediscover them.